welcome to another Exponential Race to the Top session broadcast live here from Bonn from the UN Climate Change Conference. This session will take another perspective on the question of financing climate solutions and net zero value chains. And at Exponential Roadmap Initiative, we've started some thinking really around these net zero value chains. So what can they be? They're really systems connecting producers and consumers and delivering products and services to meet human needs. But in a way that is, and now I really have to look at my notes because this is so new, circular, renewable, regenerative, and waste-free. So that's our thinking around net zero value chains. But at Vargas Holding, there is, I would say, maybe similar thinking, but what's more, there's also investing going on in value chains. Vargas calls itself an impact company builder. Welcome, Carl-Erik Lagercrantz, CEO of Vargas Holding, and again, welcome Johan Falk, CEO of Exponential Roadmap Initiative. Now, Carl-Erik, the impact companies that Vargas has built so far, most well-known, maybe internationally, are Northvolt, green batteries, or H2 Green Steel, who we've heard from earlier today, that will produce green steel. There's also Polarium with battery storage. There's IRA for heat pumps. How is Vargas using its investments to transform value chains?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on board, and thanks for driving change and bringing people together who all provide an opportunity and who bring the right solutions for a coming society. And I hope to be, and I'm glad to be here. But since I really want to make sure that we play a role from a Vargas Holding perspective. And so what we do believe in is that we have an opportunity to develop not only a decarbonized value chains, which are circular, which provide a more efficient platforms, sort of independently of verticals. That's how we look at it. We are very agnostic to what we, when we look at, is there an opportunity to develop a next generation platform? And we look at it very systematically. I think one of the greatest opportunity of our generation, and I would say maybe more the coming generation, is that there will be a whole new sort of industrial platform that needs to be developed, which we talk about a lot, and we are going too slow. But I actually think that platform that will be developed is a fantastic opportunity from a business perspective and from a societal perspective, of course. We need to have it there, and it needs to be built. There's a different logic to it. If you look at it vertical by vertical, it needs to happen. The big emitting industries, if we talk about the hard to abate industries, of course, the ones that are heavy on capex and emit and with high emissions, those are part of the verticals that we like to look at and like to develop. And I think one needs to think very thoroughly on how to go about of how to orchestrate a change or to be a part of that change in a vertical. And I think here we like the approach of having a greenfield approach and that systematic approach, meaning that we look at all of the reasons for building that new value chain in a certain geography, creating competitiveness, aligning with customers, close collaboration with technology suppliers, very, very close relationship with the financial community, knowing what they want to see, knowing how you create bankability, and a very, very close alignment with the policymakers in different geographies around the world. And I think by doing that, and my experience is that, not going into the individual companies that we have founded from scratch on that approach, brought in capital, our own capital and other people's capital, and then creating that bankability, meaning that we can scale so that we actually make the impact on a volume perspective. All of that is relevant as part of the changing world and developing the next generation platforms. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot on how we think.
Thank you, Carl-Erik, for that snapshot. Johan, why would you say is it important to take a value chain approach to transformation?
I would say moving forward, it's all about exponential transformation of value chains. The previous thinking has very much been looking at the individual companies, and this idea that you can achieve net zero by just looking at your company or your suppliers and so on, I think that is gone. The way to do this is to take a completely new approach, and that's the only way to actually accelerate the transformation. We need, and we heard that from the examples previously, how IKEA is working, for example, really closely with their suppliers on the upstream, on the energy material transformation, but also downstream in terms of transforming the business models. But also from some of your companies like H2 Green Steel, which is of course part of the value chain together with companies like Scania, as an example, and how that is tied together. And what is, as Carl-Erik said, what is essential is that to take a complete approach, both in terms of radical innovation, how we actually completely reinvent the value chains, but also that we need completely new ways of thinking in terms of financing and funding, where I think Vargas is in the front line. So I think you're incredibly interesting examples that others can copy in this transformation.
Carl-Erik, maybe you can explain that a little bit more. How is the way that you build companies that you invest in? How is
Definitely.
that
I mean, and I
new?
just to touch on it. Sorry.
Yeah. How is that new and different? How is your impact company building? How is that new and different to the investment that we know?
Well, I think it's, first of all, as Johan said, I mean, you have the legacy, the legacy industry, and I have to say this, legacy industry have the hardest time of everybody to disrupt themselves, of course. It's very hard to sort of, totally revamp if you are carbon oriented, and most of the, large companies are carbon oriented because that was the past, and we know we need to go into the future, and that creates, then you need to have new value chains, and I think then reflect on what is then we're going to build. Well, there's plentiful of technology out there which is low carbon, but you need to, and I think that is an opportunity for a company like us, where we come at it with a totally, we have no presumptions on what you can do and should do. We actually see, hang on a second, this is what society wants. This is what the demand side wants. If it is IKEA, or if it is Mercedes, or if it's Scania, or if it's Microsoft, whoever, they want to have and be supported by low carbon value chains. And that is for all of the aspects of their products. If it is polyester, or if it is steel, or it is aluminum, or if it is batteries, whatever it might be. And that is going all too slow for them. Therefore, they are perfect partners. And the way we set about it was that create that partnership from a customer perspective very early on, so that you in a way enable their strategy. But they don't want to build a steel plant. They don't want to build a battery plant. They don't want to do, build a polyester recycling plant. But they dearly want that low carbon material, which is sustainable for their long-term success. And I think this is where we come in as an enabler for that. But we are also an enabler for the policymakers, the ones who say, we need to go in this direction. And we are providing support in different dimensions. A lot of the legacy players in respective industry will say, it's very hard, we need more money, we need more support. But then, if you look at it from with a greenfield approach, that's what you provision. Totally, and I would like to say this here, when you look at the opportunity for, I would call the Western Hemisphere, which in a way outsourced a lot to outside Western Hemisphere of I would call it manufacturing, either a heavy industry or lighter industry. Now we have an opportunity to build back the new type of platforms that's in the right geography, with the right low CO2 footprint, which is also highly efficient because we're building with the latest technology. So on top of the decarbonization, I think we're providing excellent cost competitiveness, and also and what you also have an opportunity to do is something that has not been done in a long period of time, and that is to integrate the value, the industrial value chain that we're looking at. Over many years, it was the fashion was to sort of be only good at a certain part of your value chain. But I actually think that the world is changing now. So in order to be really competitive, you need to go big on scale, but you also need to be very vertically integrated in order to capture the value in the value chain that you're working with. So it becomes, in a way, complex. But when you are able to do that, I think you're able to unlock so much value, which your customers want because they want that low carbon product at the right price. Then they really want to go all in supporting you. And also on top of this, very, very close collaboration with the technology suppliers. And I'm back again to say, it's not about developing a technology which is not existent today. It's actually going into and establishing with the right technology in the right energy geography, a value chain that can support big time decarbonization for especially these hard to abate sectors. And we have so far in our companies that we have started from scratch, we raised more than, I think, $23 billion with fantastic partners all across, and we're going to continue to do that. And I think it's and I love doing it because I'm getting the feedback from our customers, and I'm getting the feedback from the policymakers that, hang on a second, you are all actually part of that, amongst many others, of enabling this transition.
Thank you for these insights, Johan. Any reflections on what you heard? You were very engaged.
Just to highlight what you said, the next generation value chains, it's all about partnerships. That's absolutely essential. And if companies are not part of the next generation value chains, they will disappear from the market. They will very soon understand that. So it's about survival and being able to grow over time. There is a tremendous opportunity for business model innovation, and you work with that as well as financial model innovation. And to scale, I think, to showing by example and show that it is not only, of course, good for the planet, but primarily a good, strong investment. That's incredibly important. And to be able to show these examples so they can be duplicated, maybe unlock some more blockers in terms of unlocking funding from institutions and other type of things which can enable even more capital and also investments in the global south. I think that's incredibly exciting.
Thanks, Johan. Carl-Erik, I do have one question there on your mission to reduce 1% of global CO2 emissions, or to decarbonize 1% of global CO2 emissions. What would make you start or build an impact company in India or in China or in maybe other emerging economies? Because most of the companies, or all of the companies, I believe that you have founded so far, are located in Europe.
Yeah, well, yes, we have also in North America, we have interest, amongst others, in Quebec, which is also, Canada is very forward-leaning and of course really wants to drive change and on both, in our case, both battery manufacturing and steel. But I think it's a great opportunity actually for other, we call it developing regions to, build a next generation industrial platform in some of the regions where it makes sense. And it has to make sense. Very hard to do something which doesn't have the industrial logic. But there are actually plentiful regions, locations where you were able to establish next generation industrial platform, low carbon, and which it could then provide societal growth, meaning that you are adding value by of course, creating jobs and all of the aspects of how a growing industry impacts society. And I would say a region like I really like Brazil. Brazil has a fantastic, actually a lot of an abundance of power. There will be a lot happening in Brazil. I think they have a forward-leaning approach. I think they could be a powerhouse for low carbon industrial platform for both South and maybe Middle America. I think that type of sort of situation which exists there is where you have abundance of power, in relative terms, a stable society. You have raw material that you're able to, in this case, iron ore, that you can actually, build into another more value-added product. Very important. And I think there are locations around the world where, if you get this right, there's a great opportunity for developing countries as well. But it is harder, of course, because you need that stability. It's very large investments, and you want to make sure that in order to have all the prerequisites in place, you need amongst that political and societal stability.
Thank you, Carl-Erik Lagercrantz, CEO of Vargas Holding, for joining us today. And thank you, Johan Falk, CEO of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, for this conversation about funding net zero value chains. Before we wrap up this session, Exponential Race to the Top session, we'd like to look back at some of the highlights of the Exponential Solutions sessions at Stockholm Climate Week last year in April, also an event that We Don't Have Time, an Exponential Roadmap Initiative, put together.